Hello and welcome to Conversations. I'm Jim Blow, your host. Very pleased to have joining me this afternoon Susan Pollay, the Executive Director for the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority. Welcome back to Conversations.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
Well, just a reminder of viewers, what is a Downtown Development Authority and what is your role in orchestrating that?
Well, the state of Michigan has a statute that enables each community to create a downtown development authority. And what their role is to focus on ways of strengthening and reinvigorating their downtown cores. Our DDA was created in the early 80s, and we've been around so long, I think people forget that all the garages pretty much were built by the DDA or certainly rehabbed.
Financed.
We have done almost all of the major streetscape, which includes all the lights, replacing broken sidewalks, replacing dead trees. But the DDA has also been involved with a number of other things. Before there was a word for it, things like mobility, DDA has been doing things like providing for bicycle amenities like bike lanes and bike parking. We've been providing free bus passes for downtown employees to free up spaces for others to come downtown. Affordable housing, you name it, our focus has been there in our downtown.
How are those decisions made as far as what you're going to focus on and how you're going to go about accomplishing what you want to?
So the DDA put forward a plan to City Council in 2002, laying out the general parameters of the projects we wanted to take on, the goals we had for those projects, and Council approved it. And the Ann Arbor DDA board is appointed by the mayor and the council, and they oversee our implementation of this plan.
Who's on the board? In other words, what is the board made up of?
So the state is pretty clear that one of the people on the board has to live downtown. One of the board members has to either be the mayor or the city administrator, and the majority of them have to have some kind of property interest in downtown, for instance, work downtown or own a business downtown. So they're very much a constituency of the area that we're working in.
Well, in the case of Ann Arbor then, what is defined as the downtown? In other words, what geographic region falls under the authority's ability to make improvements?
So our Downtown Development Authority area was laid out in the early 80s, and it's best described by where it is, which is it includes the South University area. Okay. So we go up to Washtenaw, includes South U. It includes the State Street area, sort of bounded by William and Huron. It includes the Carytown area, including Zingerman's, Community High School, Farmers Market. And it includes the Main Street area, which gets down to 2nd Street, actually okay. 3rd Street, and includes part of Main Street, which runs all the way down to Mosley. It's a very oddly shaped configuration. There was a very specific goal to focus the development in the commercial area and to keep safe and intact the nearby historic neighborhoods.
How do you finance these programs then?
So within the DDA, what we are enabled to do is, if we're successful in encouraging new projects to be constructed, a piece of the new taxes that are generated from that property will come to the DDA, which then recycles the money into the downtown.
That's to say just the new developments, new property.
That's
so
right.
If a business does their own improvement of their business, would that potentially the increase in value be accessible to the DDA as far as the tax dollars?
Possibly, if there's a property tax implication.
Okay.
The piece that's most interesting is when there's new square footage. So when you see a new building going up, that's a piece of new revenue that doesn't exist yet.
Right.
And the DDA would be able to capture some of that as an incremental finance revenue piece.
Right.
The second part was in the early 90s, the DDA took over the public parking system. Okay. The reason for it was they needed a lot of repair, they needed a lot of attention, and the DDA was able to put its resources in there. So we're now generating revenues from the parking system, which go back into the parking system. Yeah. Some portion goes back to the city, 20% in fact goes back to the city, and that's the second stream of revenues that we work with.
You mentioned that the authority is appointed by the mayor and council, and that you'd proposed in the early 2000s a plan. Do individual projects that the authority says we're going to go and work on street improvements along Main Street, would those individual projects have to get approved by council and the mayor, or as long as it fits within the general sort of plan of the whole area?
Generally, if it fits within the plan, then we're authorized.
Yeah.
But we come back to council regularly. For instance, this summer, or a year ago summer, we went because one of the pieces that we wanted to take on was the restoration of two-way traffic on First and Ashley. They were made one way with this idea of a bypass being in place, and that never happened.
And goes back a long ways.
Long ways. And that's a piece that the council needs to weigh in on. And so we brought that to them, made our case for it, and after deliberation, council gave us the thumbs up.
Okay. You mentioned streets, and one of the things that the DDA is involved in, and I'm not always sure which ones you're involved in, which ones the cities. It seems like most of downtown is being limited in access because of street improvement, street work, sewer, all that. And I'm thinking of everything from Huron Street, from what, 3rd to Division.
That's right.
William Street, still I think some of South U. How do you decide which ones are going to get worked on, and sort of how do you work with the city, with the university, I would think, to ensure that as soon as a road is improved, someone else is not digging into it?
Isn't that the worst? I'm sorry, we got to reflect on that. The last thing you want to do, you've made the investment and someone comes right behind you.
And often it's DTE or
digging. Yeah, digging. So the city of Ann Arbor developed many years ago a capital improvements plan, and it's updated very often. And the DDA projects and the city projects are in the plan, and so we're meeting together as staff and we're looking out 6 years. What are we thinking we're going to do? When do we think we're going to do it? And that coordination is really important. You mentioned the university, but something as important as a water main needs a different source of funding than the road resurfacing. So we're coordinating the sources of funds. We're coordinating also in a way that minimizes the impacts to our community, so we don't go in and then have an extended period of construction. Where possible, we try to do projects collectively as partners. So there's very much a planning exercise done many years in advance on which roadways, what projects, so that it is more in sync with each other.
In working with the city, as well, in a sense, you're a part of the city. It seems like the city is looking at adjusting everything from the number of lanes on streets, as they did on Division now a couple of years ago, that indirectly looked at in, was it North 5th by Carytown on that. And providing, as you said, more space for bicycles, for pedestrians. And then also the city's looking at that on areas outside of the downtown. Is that something that you work with the city, or that the Downtown Development Authority said, well, in the downtown we need to take care of this, and the city can deal with things elsewhere?
We work very much hand in glove, and so you spoke about areas outside downtown, for instance, the 4 to 3 lane conversion that was done on Maple as an example. That's going to be done by the city because it's outside the DDA. Within the DDA, we share with the city a approval of something that's called Vision Zero. This is a concept that says we're going to work to have no more fatalities with accidents. We're going to work to make, if an accident happens, it to be so minimal that pedestrians...
A true accident.
Absolutely. And so with this goal in mind, we have, with the city as well, worked to try to find a way to add to pedestrian safety elements. That often means slowing traffic down just a little bit. It often means being more clear about no turn on red, or giving pedestrians a leading indicator, meaning they can begin to cross the street. The goals are shared. We really see that pedestrians, bicyclists, vulnerable users, parents walking with their kids, some of us who are getting older, we don't move so fast. And so finding ways to make it safer for all of us to walk through and bicycle through and wheel through our community is a shared goal. And so that's why you're seeing this in a way happening inside and downtown and outside downtown.
In much of the Downtown Authority district, the intersections have lights, and there are walk, don't walk signs, but there are still a few areas, I'm thinking one on Main Street between, was it William and Liberty, right in front of like the Arc area. There's a crosswalk sort of in the middle of the block. By Carytown, there are some with no traffic light. The city's been working on how to clarify and ensure people understand, both in driving and walking, who has the right of way in what situations. is education a part of the DDA's sort of goal, or are there other things that you're trying to educate both the people who work, live, and shop in the downtown area?
Absolutely. So an example, to your point, yes, the DDA is taking that on. We're installing this summer the first protected bikeway on William Street. It'll go from campus all the way into the Old West Side. It will have a barrier, as it were, between cars and bicyclists to give the casual bicyclists, the parent with their little kid, the vulnerable bicyclists, much more of a sense of safety riding their bicycle. And it's the first of many that will create a grid of protected bikeways. A key component of the project is education. Talking with people about this, what does it mean, how does one use a protected bikeway? Really, the education is a key component to what we're all doing.
You mentioned with, from campus to the Old West Side, much of the property both within the DDA, I assume the city owns or controls all of the roadway, or does the university have some of that?
It's all city.
Okay, so that they could choose to.
I beg, there's also MDOT right of way.
Okay.
So
yes.
MDOT and city.
I'm just thinking of that, if the university wanted to put more of these in, they would have to choose to do that on their own.
Yeah, and again, coordinating with the city. Very much a conversation about shared goals and making things safer, and at the same time still allowing a free movement of vehicles and bicycles.
And how will you work with the university on educating students about, the bike lanes with, pedestrian safety? Because that's, one of the #1 complaints still within the city, that students decide to cross anywhere, and especially in the downtown areas. It's,
When I came as a graduate student, I heard us being referred to as squirrels. That we, and this is now 30 years ago, that we just wandered right in the middle of the street.
Well, crosswalks are suggestions.
They're suggestions, exactly. It's a giant pedestrian mall. I think that is the challenge. It's particularly a challenge because now there's this thing that wasn't here when I was going to school called earbuds. And people sort of focused in on their phone. So the challenge is distracted walking, distracted driving. I've seen distracted bicyclists. That's the challenge of our time, is to get people's head up and their ears open so that we're all more aware of our surroundings.
Well, we're going to take a short break, come back and look at other issues the DDA is looking at, housing and other aspects going on in the downtown. Ask our viewers to stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
Proper sanitary sewer use by all residents is important for an efficient and functional system. Clogs and sewer overflows increase maintenance costs for everyone. Fortunately, most clogs and sewer overflows are preventable. Fats, oils, and greases can clog sewer pipes if poured down the drain. So don't just throw greasy pans in the sink, and don't pour your grease down the drain. To dispose of these properly, collect the grease in a container, let it solidify, then throw it in the trash. And be sure to wipe out greasy pans with a paper towel before washing it in the sink. Remember that your toilet is not a trash can, so don't flush things such as medications, cat litter, or sanitary products other than toilet paper. Together, we can keep our wastewater systems clean and efficient.
Flat Earthers! Microphone! To a troll army! Autism is real! Palestinian politics! Baklava! Miss Washington! Beast forehead people! Demonic devices! Diverse viewpoints! Dynamic personalities! 30 minutes! Contact CTN to schedule your show on Access Ann Arbor. And I'm talking to you, buddy!
Catch up on FYI and other CTN programs at a2gov.org/watchctn.
Welcome back to Conversations. I'm speaking today with Susan Pollay, the Executive Director for the Downtown Development Authority here in Ann Arbor. One of the things you mentioned that the authority sort of is working on deals with housing and specifically low-cost housing. In the downtown, one of the arguments has been that the property values in downtown are so high that it makes true low-income or low-cost housing almost impossible. How can the DDA work to make it more possible?
So we've had projects in the downtown that the DDA's played a role in that take advantage of, very much so, the property question. First in Washington, remember the old garage, that beautiful white garage? It had finally reached the end of its life. It had to be demolished. The DDA offered up grant to the selected developer to make several of the units affordable at 60% AMI or below.
Right.
And what that means is area median income, 60% of what's the area median income, which at the time was about $30,000 a year
really?
income.
Okay.
So not high, but a working salary. By contributing cost to the project, the DD was able to make available 4 of those units.
Okay.
So in that way, where we're working with the developer, trying to find a way to recycle our TIF into the downtown, it's a compelling goal. We played a part in the Courthouse Square Apartments, which is senior housing. DDA contributed to elevators and other improvements. The DDA has contributed almost $5 million, frankly, over the last 15 years or so to Avalon Housing, Dawn Farm, a variety of housing providers at the very low end, but as well as 60% and 80% housing, for the general public.
And so really the DDA is looking at how you can provide, in a sense, piecemeal or a few units here and a few units there, as opposed to where in some cities you have had a major project in the downtown, which would have 80 to 100% low-income housing. But instead it's more, how can we sort of put a few units here and there for people to be able to afford?
And we've done both.
Okay.
We've contributed significant funds to Baker Commons, which is city-owned, the Housing Commission at the corner of Packard and Main. And it's very important housing for people who are, downtown employees, the people who are using downtown. That's very affordable housing, and DDA has contributed to, and it's 100% very affordable.
Okay.
But there's also been this approach that where we can gain the units. The developer is going to be putting a project together, and if we can get a toehold and get some units in there that are affordable to parts of our community who don't have those high salaries, we benefit, because downtown's diversity, our community's diversity, is one of our great strengths, and we don't want to lose it.
And one of the ways of creating a more diverse community, and whether it be for shopping or taking in the evening, has to do with parking. And that is one of those that you have one group that says you'll never have enough parking, and another group that says we have way too much parking. How does the DDA sort of balance that, and what other efforts are going on to try and reduce the need for parking?
So I mentioned earlier about our approach to this has been about mobility. You didn't hear me use parking.
No,
Our goal is to get people to downtown, enjoying downtown, and how they get there is an opportunity. So we've been supplementing the cost of bus passes for employees to get to downtown. So again, freeing up spaces that we don't now have to build, providing bicycle amenities like covered bike parking and so forth. We're working to make it possible for people to get downtown in as many different ways as possible. We support Air Ride with a discounted parking arrangement. The goal of the DDA is that sense of mobility, and parking is a piece of it. We've worked to get as much activity in downtown while at the same time not building a lot of parking. And we hear it often, there's not enough or we hear too much. Our perspective on it, though, is what can we be doing to keep adding to this menu of options? Certainly transit has got to be our future. We've got to find a way to connect downtown Ann Arbor with Detroit. We've got to find a way to build the system that we already have and add to the services we already have. Because without that, you can't just price parking to a point. You've got to give someone a really good option.
Has the DDA been involved at all in the discussions about these the motorcycle, not motorcycles,
the scooters?
The scooters, and you know, and because it seems like so many of them are used in both the campus but also the DDA area, and they occupy the sidewalks. Those things that the DDA has been involved in trying to provide a more walkable, and so. Do you work with the city on that, or with the businesses involved in providing them?
We're working with the city. Our Assistant City Administrator, John Fournier, has worked with City Council to develop a licensing agreement. The scooter that we have now is Spin. It's a part of the Ford Motor Company subsidiaries. And what's our role in this is really to find where the future is taking us. Nobody knows if what we're seeing now is going to last or if it's just getting us to the next step. My primary interest is to find a way to recover funds for every community that's gaining these sort of opportunistic technologies. You pay at a parking meter and the money goes into plowing the street and repairing the pothole. How do we get those scooters to a place where they're helping to pay for that pothole as well?
Or make it possible for them to be used year-round. Because very few are used in the wintertime, because once again it has to do with the snow removal and access to different areas.
And I don't think we know yet if these scooters are going to be here for the long term. This is such an emergent time, and these technologies are being used in ways I don't even think the owners know. So an example, I'm seeing a lot more of these spins outside the downtown where someone is using it to get to 7th Avenue, to get out to Stadium, and then they drop the scooter. So they've taken it the 2 miles. They might have otherwise have used transit, or they might have used a car. They've used the scooter.
And I've often wondered, how do they get back?
Well, the company does that. They have,
well, no. How does the individual who took it 2 miles get back to where they were? Or is it the reverse? They got a ride to downtown, they're taking the scooter to go home.
Very well. And that's the kind of community I think we're aiming toward, is this multimodal. So you might take the scooter one way, maybe transit back the other way, walking is another option. Making all of those mobilities possible, that's the goal.
Looking into the future, both short and long term, are there portions of the plan or goals that the DDA has for the next, say, 6 months to 12 months that you're working on specific types of projects? And then also looking long term, do you see a change or a shift in what the DDA focuses on?
So those are 2 questions. On the short term, the 6 months, the next big project for us will be restoring 2-way traffic on 1st and Ashley, and at the same time, it's a chance to make some infrastructure improvements. The roads need to be resurfaced, a lot of potholes, broken sidewalks, stretches of both streets don't have lighting. So that'll be a major focus for the DDA in the short term. We're looking at west of Main Street. There's a lot of development opportunity, a lot of surface lots. In the very long term, we're starting already to talk about what the role of the DDA is in that next step. Certainly, as mentioning just before, finding more transportation options and that transportation connections throughout the region. There's a lot of our workforce are commuting in. I think there's something like 90,000 people a day come in and out of Ann Arbor, and a good portion of them are in downtown. We've got to find ways to get them options other than driving. I think more and more equity is going to be an issue. Rising prices for rents. We have a community where it's not just affordable housing that is a concern, it's the affordability of housing, meaning more generally, whole families are being priced out. And we've got to find a way, a series of strategies to address that, and that's particularly true in downtown.
Are you involved at all within the business community as far as what can be done? Because one of the complaints is that some of the old mom and pop stores are being priced out because their rent goes up and they're having to shut down after 50 years or whatever, and you're getting more restaurants, more bars in the downtown, which is great at night, but not necessarily throughout the whole day. Do you get involved at all in working with businesses so they can remain downtown, or bringing in new businesses to make?
No.
Not at all?
Not
Okay.
really the role that we
Okay.
have. In some communities that may be
Yeah.
happening. In our community, just to sort of speak to that, what we're seeing is that so many of our community members are buying on Amazon. They're
Okay.
buying online. So getting that shoe downtown may not be, or the book,
Yeah.
may not be what they need to do. They've already bought the book last night at 11 o'clock. But
And they need a coffee shop to go read it in.
that's the challenge. They're on their screens. So downtown's ability to keep evolving, that's the point we have to sort of stay focused on. That said, look at stretches of downtown like 4th Avenue. Some of the most incredibly
Yeah.
interesting, exciting retail in our state is happening on 4th Avenue in Ann Arbor. Whole pockets of new entrepreneurs are taking hold in our downtown. We've seen a lot of retirements. A lot of our businesses aren't being forced out by rents. They're just ready to retire. And in place of that, other new businesses are starting to take hold. And it's exciting to see the entrepreneurialism that's taking hold.
Well, looking at that, does the DDA work at all with the State Street Association or the Main Street Association, which is more of the business-oriented aspects, in how you can work together to make businesses, you could say, easier for people to, once again, mobility of getting to the stores, getting to the restaurants, but also the variety then is being offered?
Yeah, and not to lose sight of the Carytown neighborhood and all those shops, and South University's got exciting businesses. So yeah, there are 4 downtown area associations, and we're working with them, supporting their efforts, however we can. We're in regular contact. Our goals are the same, which is a thriving small business community in downtown. It's what makes Ann Arbor special.
Well, the
Those
other thing that makes
businesses.
Ann Arbor special in the last 30 seconds, will the street projects that are going on now be open for the art fair?
Of course.
Oh.
Our calendar in Ann Arbor is shaped around art fair, absolutely.
Great. I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. It's always a pleasure to have you back here.
Well, thank you. I've loved it, and I'm excited for your retirement, but I'll be missing you. I'll be one of those that watches you, and now I'll be sad to see you
Well,
go.
thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank our viewers for joining us today and look forward to your continued support here on Conversations. Thank you.